you, Tabitha. Great to be with you this evening. It's, as I just told some folks here with an interview with Red State a few moments ago, I was asked, what did you expect coming in the room? And I have to tell you, starting the morning when I walked in, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to see with all of you. I expected to see a lot of computers, screens lit, and a lot of fingers tapping across the screens. But as I said in that interview, what I walked out of that room with was a tremendous sense of optimism and encouragement. I'm a candidate. I want to tell you about myself, but more than that, because you heard who I am today, you saw the video. I hope you go to richardmourdock.com and check it out. I don't want to talk about myself for a minute. I want to talk about all of you, because there are probably some people who are not in the world of politics who would walk into that room that we were all in today, and they would stand at the podium, they would look out, and they would see, frankly, a bunch of computer geeks. They would see a bunch of political geeks. And that's not what I see. I am a huge student of American history. And I'll tell you, because of that sense of studying history for more than 35 years, as I looked around that room today and I looked in all of your faces, what I saw was 21st century Thomas Paines. Yeah, really. You guys are that committee of correspondents in a 21st century world. You are the people who are going to change the thinking of their friends and their neighbors and their families. And that's why I have that sense of optimism. I will tell you, I come into this as not someone who is a natural-born politician. I worked 31 years as a geologist. If anyone had told me back when I was doing my graduate dissertation in geology, which was in the field of invertebrate paleontology, if anyone had ever told me that someday I'd be running for the United States Senate, I never would have believed it. Not long ago I mentioned that, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Richard, you're going to do very well in Washington, D.C. You're used to working in a world filled with spineless creatures." True enough. But let me tell you what this race is all about in a nutshell. It is about the future of America, and I make no hesitancy in saying that. We see in that debate today about what the super committee is doing, this great argument over whether or not they can find cuts of $1.2 trillion. Sounds like a lot of money. It is anywhere other than in Washington, D.C. $1.2 trillion that they're fighting to eliminate over the next 10 years isn't even as large as this year's deficit. And yet they think they're doing big work with that $1.2 trillion. Even if they're successful in cutting $1.2 trillion over the next 10 years, if the government grows just 2% a year, our debt will still increase more than $8 trillion over those 10 years. And that is unacceptable. I told someone earlier today, it's a great time to be a state treasurer and run for the United States Senate. And if you didn't notice, let me say it again, my friend Don Stenberg, who just spoke to you, is the state treasurer in Nebraska. My friend in Ohio, Josh Mandel, is the state treasurer of Ohio. And yes, I'm the state treasurer of Indiana. I want to take to Washington, D.C. the same type of fiscal discipline that recognizes when you're having an argument like the super committee is having now, it's not about the dollars. It's not about $1.2 trillion. It's about the very purpose of government. It is about whether or not we live in a nation where government sees its power to get ever bigger at the cost of our individual freedom, or whether or not we go back to a government as defined by our founding fathers under that wonderful document, the Constitution of the United States of America. That's our challenge. I am fired up for this race, as I said, because I love history and I recognize this historical moment that all of us share. We have a chance to reshape, as I think Dan said earlier today, we have the chance to shape the United States Congress for at least the next 10 years and maybe the next 20 and make it much more conservative. And it isn't just about being Republicans, it's about being conservative Republicans. Yes. We are in this race. I will tell you, several polls that have been taken. We're leading Senator Lugar, a guy who's been there 35 years. Yeah. People see this as a long shot campaign. I can tell you it is not. The day I announced, 3/4 of Indiana's Republican county chairmen signed on to support me. A majority of the Republican State Committee, the day I announced, signed on to support me. As much as they try to portray this as some Tea Party revolt, this isn't a revolt against the Republican fortress. This is the revolt inside the walls as we define this party as the party of conservatism.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to do. I close with this. Think of yourself as a 21st century Thomas Paine. When you sit down at your keyboard tomorrow, think of how the words that you're going to transmit across the ether can change people's thinking, change their voting habits, and dare I say it, inspire them to a greater vision of America. You know that wonderful first inaugural address of Ronald Reagan? He said he recognized the economic ills of his day were not there in one day, they developed over a decade. And he also went on to say that the times will improve, as they always do, because Americans will control our own destiny. We have the chance to do it. Let's not blow it in 2012. Please visit my website, richardmourdock.com. If you can write us a check, I'm not shy to ask you to do that too. Because we're here to nationalize this race. You're going to help us do it. God bless you all. Let's go get it.